When Clara signed the papers that day, she thought she was saving her daughter's life, but what she discovered 5 years later would haunt her forever. Hello, welcome back. Please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. This story will shock you. Clara's hands were shaking as she watched the doctor give Vivian the medicine that would save her life. Medicine that cost more money than Clara had ever seen. Medicine that only existed because of Stella. She'll be perfectly fine in a few days. The doctor smiled at Stella. You made the right choice bringing her here immediately. Clara felt sick. She hadn't brought her daughter here. She couldn't afford to. Stella had saved Vivian's life while Clara sat helplessly on the hospital steps. Thank you, doctor, Stella said sweetly. Then she turned to Clara with those strange eyes. Can we talk outside? In the hospital hallway, Stella spoke quietly. Clara, what if I hadn't come? What if I hadn't answered your call? What would have happened to Vivian? Clara couldn't answer. They both knew what would have happened. This medicine costs $500, Stella continued. The doctor visit costs $300. Can you pay me back? Clara's heart dropped. $800? I don't have. Of course you don't, Stella said gently. And this is just today. What about tomorrow? What about next week when she needs her follow-up appointment? What about the next time she gets sick? Clara looked through the window at Vivian, who was finally sleeping peacefully for the first time in 2 days. Her daughter looked so small in that big hospital bed. I can't keep doing this, Clara, Stella said. I can't keep saving you both every few weeks. It's not fair to any of us. What are you saying? I'm saying make your choice now. Tonight. Because I won't be able to help you again after this. Clara felt trapped. You're forcing me. Life is forcing you, Stella replied. I'm just offering you a solution. That night, Clara sat beside Vivian's hospital bed, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall peacefully. The fever was gone. The color was back in her cheeks. She was going to be okay, but only because of Stella's money. Mama. Vivian's eyes opened slowly. I'm here, baby. That nice lady saved me, didn't she? Clara's throat felt tight. Yes, she did. She must really love me to spend all that money, Vivian said sleepily. Those words cut through Clara like a knife. Stella had done what Clara couldn't do. Stella had saved her daughter's life. The next morning, Stella came back to the hospital with papers in her hand. These are the adoption papers, she said quietly. If you sign them, Vivian becomes my legal daughter. She gets the best healthcare, the best schools, the best life possible. Clara stared at the papers. And the money? $50,000 minus the $800 I spent yesterday. $49,200. Enough to change your whole life. Clara's hands were shaking. Can I think about it? The hospital bill is due this afternoon, Stella said. Without insurance, they want $2,000 for everything. If you can't pay, they'll send it to collections and destroy your credit forever. Clara felt dizzy. Another problem she couldn't solve. Another bill she couldn't pay. But if you sign these papers, Stella continued, I'll pay the hospital bill right now. Vivian will never worry about money again. And you can start fresh. Clara looked at her sleeping daughter. What happens after I sign? I take Vivian home with me today. You use the money to find a nice apartment, get a job, build a new life. And I never see her again? Stella's voice became firm. Clara, you can't have it both ways. Either you're her mother or you're not. Either you can take care of her or you can't. Having two mothers will only confuse her. Clara felt like she was drowning. But I love her. If you love her, prove it. Give her what she deserves. A nurse came in. "Excuse me, Mrs. Williams," she said to Stella. "The billing department needs to speak with you about the payment." "Of course," Stella smiled. "Clara, I need an answer now. They need to know who's responsible for this bill." Clara looked at Vivian one more time. Her daughter was healthy and safe because of Stella's money, not because of Clara's love. With tears streaming down her face, Clara picked up the pen. "Wait," she whispered. "If I sign this, how do I know you'll be good to her?" Stella sat down beside her. "Clara, my husband Michael and I have been married for 18 years. We own 3 businesses. We live in a big house in the best part of town. We've been trying to have children forever, but God had other plans." She showed Clara pictures on her phone. A huge house with a swimming pool. A yard full of flowers. A pink bedroom with toys and books everywhere. "We already prepared her room," Stella said softly. "We bought her clothes and toys and books. We found the best school in the city. We're ready to love her completely." Clara looked at the pictures, then at their tiny empty apartment building through the hospital window. "What about her father? She asks about David sometimes. We'll tell her beautiful stories about her daddy who loved her very much," Stella said. "We'll keep his memory alive in a way that brings joy, not sadness." Clara's pen touched the paper. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise me she'll be happy. Promise me she'll never know what it feels like to go hungry or be scared about money." "I promise," Stella said, and for the first time, her eyes looked completely sincere. Clara signed the papers. The sound of the pen on paper seemed impossibly loud. Each letter of her name felt like she was cutting away a piece of her heart. "It's done," she whispered. Stella immediately called the billing department. "Yes, this is Stella Williams. I'll be paying the full amount for Vivian's treatment. Please send the bill to me." Within an hour, everything was handled. The hospital bill was paid. The adoption papers were filed. Stella had written Clara a check for $49,200. "When do you take her?" Clara asked, staring at the check. "Today," Stella said gently. "It's better not to drag this out." Clara's heart felt like it was being ripped from her chest. Can I say goodbye?" "Of course. Take all the time you need." Clara sat beside Vivian's bed as her daughter woke up from her nap. "Hi, Mama. I feel much better." "I'm so glad, sweetheart." Clara's voice was breaking. "Can we go home now?" Clara's tears started falling. "Baby, Mama needs to tell you something very important." Vivian sat up, suddenly worried. "What's wrong? Remember the nice lady who helped us? Miss Stella? She's so pretty and nice." "Yes." "Well, Miss Stella and her husband want you to come live with them." Vivian looked confused. "Why?" Clara took a deep breath. "Because they love you very much, and they have a big house with toys and your own room. They can give you things that Mama can't give you right now." "But I want to stay with you," Vivian said, starting to cry. Clara pulled her close. "I know, baby. I want you to stay with me too. But sometimes when we love someone very much, we have to do what's best for them, even if it makes us sad." "Are you going to come visit me?" Clara's heart shattered completely. "No, sweetheart. You're going to live with Miss Stella and be her little girl now." "But you're my mama." "I will always be your mama in here." Clara touched Vivian's chest over her heart. "But Miss Stella is going to take care of you now." Vivian cried harder. "I don't want to go. I want to stay with you." Clara held her daughter tight, memorizing the feeling of her small body, the smell of her hair, the sound of her voice. "Listen to me, my sweet girl," Clara whispered. "No matter what happens, no matter how big you get or how long we're apart, remember that Mama loves you more than all the stars in the sky." "I love you too, Mama. Please don't make me go." But Clara had already made the choice. There was no going back. Stella came into the room with a nurse and a social worker. "Hello, Vivian," Stella said sweetly. "Are you ready to come see your new room?" Vivian held tight to Clara. "I don't want to go." The social worker spoke gently. "Vivian, your mama made this choice because she loves you very much. Miss Stella is going to take very good care of you. Will I see mama again?" The social worker looked at Clara, then at Stella. Sometimes it's better for children to start fresh in their new families. Clara understood. This was goodbye forever. She kissed Vivian's forehead one last time. "Be good for Miss Stella, okay? Be happy. That's all Mama wants." "I don't understand," Vivian cried. "You will someday," Clara whispered. "Someday you'll understand that everything Mama did was because she loves you." Stella gently took Vivian's hand. "Come on, sweetie. Let's go see your new room. It's pink, just like you always wanted." Clara watched as Stella led her daughter away. Vivian kept looking back, reaching for her mama. "Mama! Mama, don't leave me!" Clara wanted to run after them, to take back everything she had signed, to grab her daughter and never let go. But she didn't move. She watched until they disappeared around the corner. Then she collapsed in the hospital chair and cried harder than she had ever cried in her life. The check was still in her hands. $49,200. It felt like blood money. Clara took the money and rented a small apartment across town. She got a job at a restaurant. She tried to build a new life, just like Stella said she should. But every night, she dreamed about Vivian. Every day, she wondered if she had made the right choice. Every moment felt empty without her daughter's laugh, her questions, her hugs. Clara would sit by her window and look toward the rich part of town where Stella lived, wondering what her daughter was doing. Was she happy? Was she thinking about her mama? Did she hate Clara for giving her away? 3 months passed. Then 6 months. Then a year. Clara never tried to contact them. She had signed papers promising to stay away. She had given up all her rights as Vivian's mother. But she never stopped loving her daughter. She never stopped missing her. She never stopped regretting the choice she had made. Clara began working 2 jobs to keep herself busy. During the day, she worked at the restaurant. At night, she cleaned offices. She saved every penny, thinking maybe someday she could get her daughter back. But deep down, she knew it was too late. Vivian probably didn't even remember her anymore. She probably called Stella Mama now. One day, Clara was working at the restaurant when she overheard 2 women talking at a table near the kitchen. "Did you hear about the Williams family?" one woman said. Clara's heart stopped. Williams was Stella's last name. "No, what about them?" the other woman asked. "Apparently, there's some kind of investigation going on. Something about their businesses." Clara moved closer, pretending to clean nearby tables. "What kind of investigation?" "I don't know all the details, but my friend works at the police station. She said they're looking into some illegal activities." Clara's hands started shaking. What did this mean for Vivian? Are they going to arrest them? "I don't know. But if they do, what happens to their little girl? The one they adopted a few years ago?" Clara dropped the plate she was holding. It crashed to the floor, and both women looked at her. "Sorry," Clara mumbled, cleaning up the broken pieces. But her mind was racing. If something happened to Stella and Michael, what would happen to Vivian? That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her daughter. Was she safe? Was she scared? Did she need her real mother? For the first time in 2 years, Clara thought about breaking her promise. She thought about trying to see Vivian, just to make sure she was okay. But she had no idea what she was about to discover. She had no idea that the choice she made that day in the hospital was just the beginning of a story that would shock everyone who heard it. The truth about Stella Williams was darker than anyone could imagine. And Vivian was in more danger than Clara ever knew. But Clara was about to find out. And when she did, nothing would ever be the same again. Clara thought giving her daughter away was the hardest thing she'd ever do. She was wrong. Clara couldn't stop thinking about what she had heard at the restaurant. For 3 days, she tried to focus on work, but her mind kept going back to Vivian. Was her daughter safe? What kind of investigation was happening? On Friday evening, Clara made a decision that would change everything. She was going to drive by Stella's house. Just to see. Just to make sure Vivian was okay. Clara had never been to the rich part of town where Stella lived. The houses were huge, with tall gates and beautiful gardens. She felt out of place in her old car, but she kept driving until she found the address. Stella's house was even bigger than in the pictures. It looked like a palace with white walls and golden decorations. There were fancy cars in the driveway and lights shining from every window. Clara parked across the street and waited. She didn't know what she was looking for, but something felt wrong. The house was too quiet for a place where a happy family with a small child should live. Just as Clara was about to leave, she saw movement in one of the upstairs windows. A small figure pressed against the glass. A little girl with long hair. Clara's heart stopped. It was Vivian. Even from far away, even after 2 years, Clara knew her daughter immediately. But something was wrong. Vivian wasn't playing or smiling. She was just standing at the window, looking out sadly. She looked so small and alone. Clara wanted to run to the house, to break down the door, to grab her daughter and hold her tight. But she couldn't. She had signed papers. She had given up all her rights. Suddenly, a car pulled into the driveway. It wasn't Stella's fancy car. It was a plain black car with tinted windows. 3 men in suits got out and walked to the front door. Clara watched as Stella answered the door. Even from across the street, Clara could see that Stella looked scared. The men went inside, and Clara could see shadows moving behind the windows. After about an hour, the men came back out. But this time they weren't alone. They had Michael, Stella's husband, with them. His hands were behind his back, like he was wearing handcuffs. Clara gasped. She watched as they put Michael in the back of their car and drove away. Stella was left standing in the doorway, crying. Clara's first thought was about Vivian. Where was her daughter? What was happening? The next morning, Clara went to the library and searched the internet for news about the Williams family. What she found made her feel sick. Local businessman arrested for fraud. Williams family under investigation for illegal activities. Police raid reveals shocking crimes. Clara read every article she could find. Michael Williams had been stealing money from his businesses. Stella had been helping him. They had taken millions of dollars from people who trusted them. Some of those people had lost their homes, their life savings, everything. But the worst part was still coming. Clara found an article from that morning. Adopted child removed from Williams' home. Clara's hands started shaking as she read. Following the arrest of Michael Williams and his wife Stella Williams, their adopted daughter has been removed from the home by Child Services. The 5-year-old girl is currently in protective custody while authorities determine her future placement. Sources say the couple's assets are being frozen as part of the criminal investigation. Clara felt like she couldn't breathe. Vivian was in protective custody. Her daughter was alone and scared in some government building with strangers. Clara ran out of the library and drove straight to the Child Services office. She waited in line for 3 hours before someone would talk to her. "I'm looking for information about a little girl," Clara told the woman behind the desk. "Her name is Vivian Williams. She was adopted by Stella and Michael Williams." The woman looked at Clara suspiciously. "Are you family?" Clara's heart was beating so fast. I'm her biological mother. The woman's eyebrows went up. Do you have proof of that? Clara showed her the old adoption papers she had kept. The woman read them carefully. It says here you gave up all parental rights, the woman said. I know, but I need to know if she's okay. Please. The woman sighed. I can tell you she's safe. She's in a temporary foster home while we figure out what to do next. Can I see her? No. You signed away your rights. Legally, you're not her mother anymore. Clara felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. But the people who adopted her are criminals. They're in jail. That doesn't change your legal status, the woman said firmly. The child will either go to another family member of the Williams family, or she'll be placed with a new adoptive family. But I'm her real mother. You were her birth mother. You're not her legal mother anymore. Clara left the office feeling hopeless. Somewhere in this city, Vivian was scared and confused, probably wondering why her life had been turned upside down again. And Clara couldn't do anything to help her. That night, Clara couldn't eat or sleep. She kept thinking about Vivian as a scared 5-year-old, probably crying for the only parent she remembered. Clara wondered if Vivian ever thought about her real mama anymore. The next day, Clara went back to the Child Services office. This time, she asked to speak to a supervisor. Please, Clara begged the supervisor, a kind-looking older woman named Mrs. Johnson. I know I signed papers, but that was before I knew what kind of people the Williams were. My daughter needs me now. Mrs. Johnson looked at Clara's file. Mrs. Clara, I understand your concern, but the law is very clear. When you signed those adoption papers, you gave up all legal claim to that child. But what about what's best for Vivian? She's been through so much trauma. First losing her daddy, then me giving her away. Now losing the only parent she's known for 2 years. She needs stability. Which is why we're working to find her a good permanent home. Clara felt desperate. I am her home. I'm her real mother. Mrs. Johnson's voice became gentler. Clara, I have to ask you something difficult. Why did you give her up in the first place? Clara told Mrs. Johnson the whole story. About David's death, about having no money, about Vivian getting sick, about feeling like she had no choice. And how is your situation now? Mrs. Johnson asked. I have 2 jobs. I have an apartment. I have savings. I can take care of her now. Mrs. Johnson was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Clara, there might be one way. If you can prove that the adoption was done illegally or under false pretenses, a judge might consider reversing it. Clara's heart jumped. What do you mean? Well, if Stella Williams lied to you about her situation, or if she forced you to sign papers when you weren't able to make a clear decision, or if there was fraud involved. Clara thought back to that day in the hospital. Stella had said she would pay for Vivian's medical treatment, but only if Clara signed the adoption papers. She had made Clara choose between her daughter's health and keeping her daughter. She did force me, Clara said quietly. She said she wouldn't pay for Vivian's medical treatment unless I signed the papers. My daughter was dying, and Stella used that to make me give her up. Mrs. Johnson leaned forward. That could be considered coercion. Do you have any proof? Clara thought hard. The hospital records. They'll show that Stella paid for everything right after I signed the papers. That's a start. But you'll need a lawyer. And even then, it's not guaranteed. I don't have money for a lawyer. Mrs. Johnson gave Clara a card. This is a legal aid organization. They help people who can't afford lawyers. Tell them I sent you. Clara took the card like it was made of gold. The next day, Clara met with a lawyer named James Rodriguez. He was young and seemed to care about helping people. "This is a very difficult case," James told Clara after hearing her story. "Courts don't like to reverse adoptions, especially after 2 years." "But the Williams are criminals," Clara said. "And they forced me to sign by using my daughter's illness." "That helps. But we need to prove that Stella Williams planned this from the beginning. We need to show that she targeted you specifically because she knew she could manipulate your desperate situation." Over the next few weeks, James and Clara worked together to investigate Stella Williams. What they discovered was shocking. Stella had done this before. They found records showing that Stella had helped 3 other poor mothers in similar situations over the past 10 years. In each case, Stella had appeared at just the right moment when the mothers were most desperate. She had offered money in exchange for their children. But here was the most shocking part. None of those children had stayed with Stella for very long. After about 2 years, each child had been given to other families. Stella was running an illegal adoption business, buying children from desperate mothers and selling them to wealthy families who couldn't adopt through legal channels. "This is criminal," James told Clara. "Stella Williams wasn't just adopting children. She was trafficking them." Clara felt sick. "Where is Vivian now? Did she sell my daughter to someone else?" James looked at his notes. According to the records, Vivian was still living with the Williams family when they were arrested. But we need to find out if there were any plans to move her. They requested more records from the police investigation. What they found made Clara's blood run cold. In Stella's computer, police had found emails discussing plans to transfer Vivian to a family in another country. The emails talked about getting false documents and moving her before the investigation was complete. They were going to take her out of the country, James said. "If the police hadn't arrested them when they did, you might never have found your daughter." Clara started crying. She thought about how close she had come to losing Vivian forever. "What do we do now?" Clara asked. "Now we go to court. We have evidence of fraud, coercion, and criminal activity. We have a strong case to reverse the adoption." The court hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Clara was so nervous she could barely eat or sleep. Everything depended on this one day. On the morning of the hearing, Clara put on her best dress and met James at the courthouse. The judge was an older woman with gray hair and serious eyes. Stella Williams was there too, wearing an orange jail uniform and handcuffs. She looked very different from the fancy woman who had appeared at Clara's door 3 years ago. She looked scared and angry. James presented all their evidence. He showed the hospital records proving that Stella had used Vivian's illness to force Clara's decision. He showed the computer files proving that Stella was running an illegal adoption business. He showed the emails about plans to move Vivian out of the country. "Your Honor," James said, "this adoption was obtained through fraud and coercion. Clara Matthews was a desperate mother who was manipulated into giving up her child. She was told her daughter would die without expensive medical care that only Mrs. Williams could provide. This was not a voluntary adoption. This was exploitation." Stella's lawyer argued that Clara had signed the papers willingly and that too much time had passed to reverse the adoption. Then the judge asked to speak to Vivian. Clara's heart stopped. She was going to see her daughter for the first time in 3 years. A social worker brought Vivian into the courtroom. Clara could barely breathe. Her little girl was now 5 years old. She was taller and her hair was longer, but Clara would have recognized her anywhere. Vivian looked scared and confused. She didn't understand why she was in this big room with all these adults. The judge spoke to Vivian very gently. "Hi, sweetheart. Do you know why you're here?" Vivian shook her head. "We're trying to figure out who you should live with. Do you remember your mama from when you were very little? Before you lived with Mr. and Mrs. Williams?" Vivian looked around the room. Her eyes stopped when she saw Clara. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Vivian's eyes got wide. "Mama?" she whispered. Clara started crying. Her daughter remembered her. Vivian ran across the courtroom and threw herself into Clara's arms. "Mama, I missed you so much. Why did you leave me?" Clara held her daughter tight, feeling like her heart might explode with joy and pain. "I missed you too, baby. I never stopped thinking about you." The judge watched this reunion with tears in her eyes. Even Stella looked shocked. "Mama, are you going to leave me again?" Vivian asked, holding Clara's face in her small hands. "Never," Clara promised. "If I can help it, I will never leave you again." The judge made her decision. "Based on the evidence presented, I find that this adoption was obtained through fraud, coercion, and illegal activities. The adoption is hereby reversed. Clara Matthews, you are restored as the legal mother of Vivian Matthews." Clara couldn't believe it. She had her daughter back. But the judge wasn't finished. "Mrs. Williams, you will face additional charges for child trafficking and fraud. Your actions have caused immeasurable harm to this family and others." Stella was led away in handcuffs, but before she left, she looked at Clara with hatred in her eyes. "You'll regret this," Stella said quietly. "That child will never forgive you for giving her away in the first place." Those words scared Clara, but she pushed them away. Right now, all that mattered was that she had Vivian back. Over the next few months, Clara and Vivian worked to rebuild their relationship. It wasn't easy. Vivian was confused and sometimes angry. She didn't understand why Clara had given her away. "Did you not love me anymore?" Vivian asked one night. Clara held her close. "Baby, I loved you so much that I thought giving you a better life was more important than keeping you with me. I was wrong. You were wrong. Yes, I should have found another way. I should have never let anyone take you from me." Slowly, Vivian began to trust Clara again. They went to counseling together to work through their feelings. Clara learned that Vivian had not been happy with the Williams family. Stella had been cold and strict. Michael had been mean sometimes. Vivian had often cried at night, missing her real mama. "I used to look out my window and wish you would come find me," Vivian told Clara. "I wanted to," Clara said. "I thought about you every single day." 1 year later, Clara and Vivian were finally happy together. Clara still worked hard, but now she had a better job and they had a nice apartment. Vivian was doing well in school and had made lots of friends. But then something happened that nobody expected. Clara got a phone call from James Rodriguez, her lawyer. "Clara, I need to tell you something important," he said. "The police found something in Stella Williams' papers." "What?" "Evidence that your husband David's death might not have been an accident." Clara felt the world spinning around her. "What do you mean?" "Stella had been watching your family for months before David died. She had files on both of you. She knew about your financial situation, your jobs, everything." Clara couldn't breathe. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying the police think Stella might have been involved in David's death. They think she caused the accident at the factory where he worked." Clara sat down hard. "She killed my husband so she could take my daughter?" "They're still investigating, but it looks that way. Stella needed you to be desperate and alone so you would be willing to give up Vivian." Clara felt sick. Stella hadn't just stolen her daughter. She had destroyed their entire family to do it. The investigation continued for several more months. Finally, the truth came out. Stella Williams had been running an illegal adoption ring for 15 years. She would identify struggling families, then create situations that would force the mothers to give up their children. Sometimes she would get people fired from their jobs. Sometimes she would cause accidents. Sometimes she would make sure children got sick at just the right moment. In David's case, She had bribed someone at the factory to sabotage the machinery he worked with. David's death had been murder, planned and paid for by Stella Williams. The whole story was so shocking that it made national news. Clara and Vivian's case became famous as an example of how far some people will go to get what they want. Stella Williams was sentenced to life in prison for murder, fraud, child trafficking, and many other crimes. But for Clara and Vivian, the most important thing was that they were together again. 5 years later, Vivian is now 10 years old. She's smart, happy, and healthy. She and Clara are best friends as well as mother and daughter. Sometimes Vivian asks Clara about the time they were apart. "Do you regret giving me to that bad lady?" she asks. Clara always gives the same answer. "I regret that I felt I had no other choice. But giving you up led to us finding out the truth about what happened to your daddy. And it led to Stella going to prison so she couldn't hurt any other families. Maybe everything happened for a reason. Do you think Daddy is proud of us?" Clara looks at the picture of David that still sits on their table. "I think Daddy is very proud of how brave and strong his little girl has become." Today, Clara works as an advocate for other mothers in difficult situations. She helps them find resources and support so they never have to make the impossible choice she once made. And sometimes, late at night, when Vivian is sleeping peacefully in her own bed, Clara thinks about how different things could have been. She thinks about how close she came to losing her daughter forever. But then she remembers the most important lesson she learned. A mother's love never dies, no matter how much time passes or how far apart they are. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to fight for what's right, love really can conquer everything. What did you think of this story? Could you have made Clara's choice? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads.